So welcome everybody to my YouTube channel once again. So today we're gonna be doing this little painting. I've been doing this for about a year, and so I wanted to show you my process. So first I have a background painting, a back color. It could be any color. This time we're trying green just for the sake of doing something different. And here I'm just painting a couple of tomatoes and a garlic head, maybe you call it. For today I got this little set. It is from Art Philosophy. It's the Art Philosophy set, and I ran out of white a long time ago, so I'll be using this Daniel Smith white tube of gouache. So yeah, I've been experimenting with these background colors for about a year. I've been using one of each ones that came on the set. Just trying to see if it makes a difference or not. It kind of does make a difference, but here what I enjoy the most of doing it is that I have sort of like a mid-tone there. Then I can make lighter or darker. And I think it's interesting to do that experiment and paint like that. So from a mid-tone, do your darks and lights. So naturally here, I wanted to start with the light background, the white one, because this is going to give me a reference on how dark am I going to get and contrast and all those things. So again, remember the gouache, you gotta layer it in a specific way. So from less water to more water, kind of like this 5-step thing. Some people call it like tea consistency, then coffee, milk, then cream, and the last one is butter. So the first one the one that I use for the background is pretty light. It's sort of like a tea coffee-ish, and then I'm going with is slightly thicker layers of white to slowly build it up to a more lighter tone, more white. Once I have sort of that all that background kind of covered, I like to paint a little bit of that projected shadow there. I usually go for a cooler color on the shadows. I feel it's more natural, kind of like that. And this is gonna be a game of trying to wait from parts to dry. So while some parts dry, I go back and repaint others. In this case, this was kind of a hot day, so that upper part of the background was already pretty dry, so I was able to go with a little thicker. Here I'm going with already like a milk consistency on that upper part of the background, and once again going again with the bottom half of that background. Let's say the ground, sort of like the floor where those, or the table where those tomatoes and that garlic is, where they are laying right now. So here you can see I usually don't use straight white, just for the highlights, the very end of the painting. Here I usually like to tint them a little bit, whether I wanna do them a little cooler or maybe a little warmer. In many cases I like them a little earthier, so I might use my I think that one's a burnt umber or burnt sienna or even ochre, and I try to play around a little bit with that. Here in the garlic, that's what I'm doing. I'm filling in on all those green gaps that I have there, and setting some of the tones, some of the initial at least tones or values there. I go for the mid ones, and then here I'm trying to do going again for those darker sort of little, I'm gonna call those cooler shadows there near the shadow there. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm adding again a little bit of an earthier tone, trying to get those mid-tones ready. And later we're gonna be coming back several times to this. Now while we wait for that to dry, we turn back to the tomatoes. we haven't done anything there, so just trying to do some red there, trying to sort of like delineate, if that's even a word in English, to paint the borders of where that tomato is gonna go. I'm always varying the tones here. I feel like in nature nothing is the same tone for a long time, or the same surface. They always change a little bit, so I'm constantly changing that tone. And for the whole thing to be cohesive, I didn't just use that same tone on just one part, but I'm always painting a little bit here, a little bit there, so that the whole thing looks more cohesive. Here, as you can see, I'm trying to darken that red, and I usually don't use the complementary or the opposite color in the color wheel to darken the colors. I usually tend to go for that umber. I feel like it's a more natural way to darken the colors, especially if we're painting fruit and still life. That's what I usually do. And here, as you can see, it's just what I was just talking about. I might paint a little bit of the tomato in the background and then come back to the one and that is closer to us, or in the foreground, or to the left. This way we have more cohesion and color. Little by little, again, I'm gonna be filling in and changing and adjusting those tones. Some of them are gonna be a little bit more pastel-y, some of them are gonna be warmer or more yellowish, until we get a nice separation there of colors. At the end of the day, at least the style that I really like is this impressionistic style, and that's what I try to mimic in most of my paintings. I hope to one day be as good as those impressionistic masters. I'm not even close yet, but practice makes master, that's what people say. Here again, and this is kind of a big problem of this art philosophy set, and that is that you try to paint everything dark and you just wait for a few minutes for it to dry and it gets way lighter. Here you can already see the difference. When I just put the fresh paint to here, it already lightened a lot. So yeah, it's again a game of waiting for it to dry, and then I'll come back later to adjust those values again. Here what I'm doing is that I know that the leaves and stems of those tomatoes are going to be pretty dark, so I want to make a higher contrast. So on the back of those tomatoes, like you see here, I'm trying to make that pretty light value, so that we have that sense of depth. The background is lighter, and then the foreground is going to be a little bit darker. So that's what I'm trying to do there. Again, layering. Here I'm already getting to a pretty creamy consistency on this gouache. And yeah, again, just waiting for it to dry and keep layering. Went and I refreshed my palette a little bit. While I did that, it already dried up a little bit, so I come again and keep layering, right? Then I switched to a smaller brush. Now I'm gonna focus on that garlic a little bit because it looks a little raw. So again, I'm looking at if the shadows are pinkish or warmer or more muted, or what's happening there. So I'm focusing a little bit on those areas, trying to give the sense of depth and getting the volumes right and everything. So that's what I'm trying to do here. Don't be afraid to not use your whites as they come. I encourage you to try to mix them with other colors, because that's also very natural. You always find that in nature. The white always gets sort of contaminated. It gets colors reflected on it, so it always changes slightly. Here I'm getting back of those leaves, or those tomatoes, painting the leaves, and I saw that white is still not fully dried. As you can see, it kind of moved a little bit. So I'm just gonna suggest where those leaves and stems are gonna go. I'm gonna see, I did it again. And that's the thing, you gotta have patience here. So I saw it didn't work, so I'm gonna just leave it for a while, and I'm gonna focus on a different part of the painting while that part dries. So I'm going back to the first one. It has some little greenish parts there, that, you know, when you mix a little bit of green with that red, it turns out into a little bit of a gray. So that's what I'm trying to do there. And while I did that, it kind of dried a little bit more, and as you can see, it already lightened a lot from what I painted first. So going back and trying to make those leaves a little darker. While I did that, the garlic already dried, so I'm coming back at it, trying to fill in all those green spots that were left there, and trying to do some of the light areas. As you can see here, I'm already getting pretty thick with the gouache. I'm already gonna say that this is a pretty creamy consistency, almost straight from the well there, my palette. And since I'm working with that consistency, you will see it in a second, I'm gonna start putting some of those highlights there that simulate the wetness of the tomato. And yeah, the lights on the shiny parts of the tomato as well. Now a little bit to the back on the onion. Try to paint those, what are those, roots? I'm not sure what is that, but yeah, it's a little bit of a tricky part there. I'm just kind of dotting those things, and I'm noticing that I forgot to make the projected shadow a little darker, so I'm going a little bit after the fact, trying to make it darker. Once again, I like those shadows pretty cool, so I am mixing a blue, greenish, almost purplish, and as I as the shadow gets further away from the subject, or the tomatoes in this case, those shadows are going to get a little lighter. So that's what I'm doing, kind of extending them and making them a little lighter as we get further from the tomatoes and the garlic. Here I'm again tweaking that garlic. I'm still not happy with it, not happy with the texture, not fully happy with the volumes. So I'm trying to tweak it, and as I do that, I kind of blend a little bit with the previous colors, and that helps a lot to give that onion the right volumes. I go back to that part since it's already dry. It already dried, so I'm trying to do a little bit of some dark spots there that they are gonna get lighter later. Now that I have that, try to mix a darker red, and I also take the opportunity to shape that garlic a little better. Just like that, I also fixed those lines that kind of looked a little raw at first, those darker shadows on the tomatoes, and again go back at those leaves that they just keep getting lighter and lighter. And I don't know if this is a problem of gouache in general, or it is this art philosophy branded gouache that just is very difficult to get very dark darks or blacks almost. And you might say, why don't you just use the black one? I'm not a big fan of using black. In some cases I feel forced to do it, but yeah, I'm not a big fan. Still, I think that this painting turned out decently well. Here, yeah, I like some variation on the background, so I go back and do a little bit more of variation, and I try to blend with the previous layers, and at the end I think it turned very well. Now, full disclosure, this is not my picture, not my painting. This came from Vicki McGrath, who I'm gonna be tagging on the description of this video. So yeah, I'm done with this painting at this point. I like the way it ended up looking. Hope you liked it too, and if you did, consider subscribing, liking. That will really help my channel. So yeah, thank you for everything. Have a good one and take care.